What's going on, everybody? Welcome into College Football Now. My name is Joey Peterson. He is Will Ortner, and on today's show, we're going to take a look into the future. Because if you didn't know, Mike Norvell's seat is as hot as any's in college football right now. It feels like it's only a matter of days, maybe even weeks, until he is let go from Florida State. And in that case, they're going to be needing a new head honcho down there in Tallahassee. We're going to give you 10 names to keep an eye out on that might be the new head coach for Florida State. But make sure you stay locked in, okay? Because if Norvell does get the boot, when that eventually happens, we'll have it covered here. So make sure you subscribe today. A lot of things going on in college football, especially in the head coaching circles. We have it right here at Chat Sports. So subscribe and join us. Norvell at FSU. It's been a roller coaster of a career there in Florida State, has it not, Mr. Will Ortner?
Well, it was very shocking as we went through the numbers here because maybe I'm just too stuck in the past. I'm a big fan of the Black Eyed Peas, and so I haven't given up on Norvell and what he did early on in that 2022 season. I mean, shoot, if Jordan Travis doesn't go down and get hurt, they're the number one seed in the last 4-team playoff for the college football playoff. And then you look at his stats and he's been average at best ever since then. Remember, it was 20, 30 guys opt out of their bowl game that they lose in the Orange Bowl. And at the time, it was not a big deal. Hey, whatever, those guys are going to the NFL or they're going to transfer. They're going to find a better spot for themselves. And it actually feels like that might have been the beginning of the end for Norvell because the culture has completely shifted since then.
Yep.
He has a losing record, more than double the losses as he does to wins. And I think what's scary for Norvell is he continues to feed into the same problem that he had from the very beginning, and that's use transfers, use and abuse the portal, and not build a consistent culture through the high school recruits.
Yeah, you should use the transfer portal to your advantage, but you should not build your roster via the transfer portal. He took a risk. It worked out in 2023. He said, let's run it back in 2024 and 2025, and obviously it has not worked. So who are 10 names for Florida State? I'll start you off with one. Jason Eck with New Mexico. Right now, they're sitting at 6-3 on the season. What he's been able to do with New Mexico for a school like that, the talent that he's gotten there, and the way they're performing, it's got to be impressive enough for him to get some head coaching looks this offseason.
I'd make the argument his more impressive job isn't New Mexico. It's what he did with FCS's Idaho. The Potatoes, or Vandals, I should say, have not been a stellar program. Let's just say that. For those of you who used to play the old 2014 college football game, there's a reason why that Idaho team is no longer in the current college football games. That's because the team was so bad that they had to move down into the Big Sky. Eck comes in, takes over as the head coach there from one of the Petrinos, and instantly turns them into an FCS power and gets them into the playoffs, which earned him that job at New Mexico. Now, I don't believe that Florida State would take a risk and go and hire a Jason Eck, but someone will. Someone will make the decision to hire Jason Eck, and it will be the smartest decision that program has ever made. He was a Wisconsin Badger playing in the trenches. It's clear that he knows how to get the most out of his players, but also continue to build a culture of winning.
Best decision they've ever made. You heard it right here from Will Ortner. Will they make the decision of hiring Tommy Rees, the current offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns, who have not had a great season? But I don't think it's because of the offensive coordinator. I think it's more because of the offensive talent. He's a young head coach, or excuse me, not a young head coach. He's a young coach, and he could be a guy that makes the climb back into the college football ranks this offseason with all those openings.
I wonder if Rees is the type of coach that looks at the NFL game, though, and says, hey, I don't have to deal with as much elsewhere around, right? I don't have to go and talk to any donors and be nice to them. I don't have to, go and see an 18-year-old and really kiss their behind. I can just go in and coach college football or coach NFL football. I wonder if he's in this new wave of coaches that view the NFL game as actually a little bit more relaxing, a little bit easier than dealing with the day-to-day in college football.
Glenn Schumann is our 8th coaching candidate, and although the Georgia Bulldogs defense is not as stellar as we're used to seeing, he's a guy who has learned under Kirby Smart, and if you want stability in a head coach, how about you just get a guy that's from the Nick Saban tree? How about you just get a guy who has watched Kirby Smart coach for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, who's been under him, who's learned from him, that seems like Glenn Schumann is going to be a good bet from somebody at some point over the next couple of years. Do you think Mike Norvell will be fired before the end of the season? Give me a yes or give me a no in the comment section down below. It feels like that's almost a certainty at this point, but who knows? They gave him that vote of confidence a couple of weeks ago. Will they keep it? Number 7, you can't talk Florida State without mentioning probably their most famous alum, and that is one Mr. Deion Sanders. This name had a little bit more shine on it a couple of years ago. That's turned a little bit into rust over this season. Could Deion be a legitimate candidate for Florida State?
I would say no, but crazier things have happened before. Remember, Deion was up for this job when Norvell got it the first time. That's the sneaky thing that was kind of hidden behind the scenes of Florida State. What I will say with this on Deion, if you are going to make the hire for him, you also better make the hire for the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. He needs to be a CEO type head coach. He needs to be the head of recruiting. Do not let him touch the offense or the defense, and do not let him be in charge of the timeouts. I've watched too many Colorado Buffalo games this year with just wasted opportunities because he didn't call the game the correct way. He didn't use his timeouts when he needed to. And to me, it would be a move of use him to get everybody in and then trust that the coaching staff underneath him really builds up the players the way they need to be.
I mean, I said it when he got hired at Colorado. Instantly, he has the same amount of pull as even a Nick Saban does. I know that sounds
100%.
ridiculous to say, but imagine being a 16-year-old and you look on your phone and you get a text from Deion Sanders. That means something to
100%.
these recruits. And so I think if you are going to hire him, you got to have him as a CEO type. I think this is a really interesting name, Brian Hartline. He's the wide receivers coach and offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And if you know anything about Ohio State and their wide receivers, well, they've put out the best NFL talent probably over the last decade in the National Football League. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Terry McLaurin. I mean, you could go on and on and on, all developed by Brian Hartline.
Eventually, someone is going to bring him in as the head coach. Everything that Ohio State has done around Brian Hartline has been made to keep him there.
Yes.
Because he was originally just a wide receiver coach. Now, all of a sudden, teams are sniffing around him to be an OC. Hey, now you can be the OC here at Ohio State. They're not going to move on from Ryan Day to get Brian Hartline into a position of being the head coach of the Buckeyes in any time soon, right? So they're going to clearly have to be okay with him moving on. Which team is finally going to give him a bag, so to speak? He can recruit and he can flat out coach and develop talent. Someone's going to give him an opportunity.
We got the top 5 coming up soon, but I got something that's number 1. I'm talking about America's number 1 fantasy sports app. Our friends over at Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you could pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Lamar Jackson's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. I think my favorite thing about Prize Picks is it is so easy to use. My wife plays it on a daily basis. My dad plays it on a daily basis. If my dog Applesauce, if she had opposable thumbs, I promise you she would play it on a daily basis as well. All you do is choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you watch the winnings roll in. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Link to this promo is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. For number 5, we go to the unemployment line. That is James Franklin. Right now, it just feels like Florida State needs stability.
Yep.
Feels like there's a lot of turmoil going on internally. And say what you want about James Franklin, I think he's a guy that screams that word.
I'll tell you right now, James Franklin is the exact opposite of Mike Norvell.
Yes.
I couldn't agree with you more, Joey, and I think what would be important about adding Franklin over to Florida State is he is a clear winner. I understand that it didn't work out at Penn State. James Franklin is basically a tier 2 coach in my eyes. He is going to beat most of the teams that are worse than his program. He's going to build you up into being a top 10, top 15 program. Nowadays, that's good enough to get you into the college football playoffs. I don't know that he's good enough to get you a national title. I don't know that that is something that James Franklin has in his bag. But he can make you a program that people care about again. And that's really what Florida State needs right now. They need people to care about them again. And the best way to do that, I think, is go in with a culture builder. James Franklin would make Florida State instantly into one of the better teams in the country and return them back to their glory.
Jon Sumrall is our number 4 hot board candidate. And I think the question with Jon Sumrall and Florida State is, would Florida State be able to land him? Because right now there's a lot of jobs open that many people would look at as better opportunities with Florida State. Hell, there's one of them in their own state with the University of Florida, Penn State, LSU. Jon Sumrall is going to be a top name on every single one of those jobs just because of what he's been able to do at that level in Tulane, and that is just win, baby, okay? So Jon Sumrall, I think, is going to be a great head coach for a Power 4 program at some point over the next couple of months, but will that program be Florida State? I guess we'll find out soon. Manny Diaz is at number 3, and it feels like with Manny Diaz, you'd get the quarterback as well, a 2-for-1. Do you think Florida State would be interested in that?
I think Florida State would be interested. I do think it would be a mistake. I think Manny Diaz gets a little bit hidden behind what's going on right now at Duke because, well, Duke football is the second most important thing at the University of Duke. They care about the basketball program more. And the fact that Duke is winning football games and being bowl eligible every year, that's good enough for them. I think if Manny Diaz goes back into one of these big school ranks, we're going to see a lot of the issues that he's had in the past. That Duke team should not have lost to Illinois, but they continue to turn the ball over. Make changes in the calls that you have on the field. I don't know that Manny Diaz would necessarily be a bad hire for Florida State. I do think, though, it is a hire that would not work out in the end, and you'd be looking for a new coach probably within 5 years.
Will Stein is number 2 on this list, the Oregon Ducks offensive coordinator. What he's been able to do at that school under Dan Lanning, you sigh. There's been some ups, there's been some downs, but he's learning under a head coach who many people would have in regards as a top 3 head coach in current state of college football. Will Stein to Florida State. Thoughts on that one?
I sigh because I don't want him to leave. This is my Brian Hartline. Will Stein has been incredible since he came into Oregon. What he was able to do with Bo Nix in his first year there and Bo Nix's last year is just really settle down Nix and turn him into a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Then what does he do the very next year? He makes Dillon Gabriel a player that we were having conversations about. Is he one of the best quarterbacks in college football? Now, obviously, he was going to have his issues at the next level, but Dillon Gabriel, I think his talent got maxed out under Will Stein. And then what you're seeing this offense do with Dante Moore, I mean, you went into the portal, you go in and grab a Tulane running back that's supposed to be the big running back for your squad. He doesn't even play because of what you've been able to do with Whittington and Davison and the rest of that crew. The offensive line every single year is in the Joe Moore Award conversation, and wide receivers just continue to improve every single year. By the way, he got in the best wide receiver in the last recruiting class in Decorian Moore, and he's been absolutely fantastic for you. So, yes, I sigh, but I sigh because I know at some time Will Stein is going to have to fly away from the nest, and I just want to delay that as long as possible. I feel like an overprotective mother.
Will Stein, being a head coach, feels a little bit Thanos-y, like it is inevitable, and
Yes.
Will it be this season that it happens? Another thing that seems inevitable is that Alex Golesh is going to get a Power 4 job, and I feel like Florida State would be a really, really good fit for him for multiple reasons. Number one, you just look at the way this guy coaches at USF, the way these guys play for him. I mean, he seems like one of those guys that every single one of his players would run through a brick wall for him. He comes from the Josh Heupel coaching tree, so there's a lot of tempo, a lot of quick, offensive plays, and they score a lot of points. I think there's a lot of things to like about Alex Golesh, right? He's been at USF. He's been at UCF, so he knows what it's like to recruit in the state of Florida as well, which is one of the richest recruiting states in college football. He will be a Power 4 head coach in the next couple of years. The question is, who's going to be able to roll that dice? I think Florida State would be very, very smart if they did it.
I think when you see Florida State at their best, when you've seen Miami at their best, and when you've seen Florida at their best, what have they all three done? It's recruit the state of Florida. Football is a religion down there. It is a lifestyle, and some of the best football players of all time have come from that state. I think that Golesh could go into Florida State and instantly transform that program. Again, doing the same things that I talked about with James Franklin, and build a culture through the high school, through local Florida kids, through local high school athletes that want to go to Florida State and make it a power, again, that grew up with their parents talking about the Seminoles, talking about how great the teams used to be back in the day. You get a coach like Golesh to come in to that program with that high-powered offense, with the elite athletes that Florida State could recruit. I think that is a home run hire. And I think that they should definitely do that and not call Coach Stein.
Alex Golesh, he'll be a head coach someday, and someone's going to be very happy that they made him so. Head coach in the Power 4. You get what I'm saying. Who will be FSU's next head coach? Fill in that blank for me and let me know your answer in the comments section down below. We're going to get on out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Daily college football coverage. And hey, if you're a fan of the NBA or the NFL, we do it right here at Chat Sports. And if you subscribe, that's great. We'll see you next time.